My life is so boring. Turn that god-darn off. It sounds terrible.
Hey.
Huh?
It's all good, dude. Just watch this beginner bass lesson.
Hey, I'm Josh with Bass Buzz. I'm gonna take you through 7 steps to get you from total newbie to playing your first song. First, I'll get you started with playing position and gear essentials. Then we'll dive into plucking, fretting, and groove. And I'll show you how to avoid some common beginner mistakes so your grumpy neighbor won't yell at you to turn down.
Hey, I heard that. You need to plug your bass into an amp with a cable.
You should practice amplified most of the time so you get used to hearing yourself the way other people would hear you. So just find the input jack on the body of the bass. It might be on the front or the side. Plug in the cable, doesn't matter which end. Then plug the other end into your amp and switch it on. And you should hear some good sounding bass coming out, unless your knobs aren't dialed correctly, which is why that's step 2. You've got knobs on your bass and on your amp. To get started, you just need to know enough to make a sound that isn't terrible. First, bass knobs. They affect your volume, how loud your bass is, and also your tone, like the character of the sound, whether it's dark and warm, or more bright and zingy. Different basses have different knob situations. On a precision style bass, or P bass, which is super common, you've just got 2 knobs. One controls volume, and the other one controls tone. Going fully clockwise gives you a brighter tone, and going counterclockwise gives you a darker tone. On a jazz style bass, or J bass, you've got a volume for this pickup, a volume for this pickup, and then a tone knob just like the P bass. If your bass isn't a P or a J, or maybe it's an active bass, meaning it takes batteries, you just need to look up a manual for your specific bass. Pro tip, if you do have an active bass, make sure you unplug it when you're not playing, otherwise the batteries will drain and your bass won't make sound. Let's look quickly at amp knobs. Again, different amps will have different knobs, but the quick fix for getting started is just to set everything except volume to 12 o'clock. Your goal is just to get a decent sound. You can always fiddle around more later. Wait, this is volume and this is volume? Which one do I use?
The simplest way to set your overall volume
Is to start with your bass volume maxed or close to it, and then just creep up the amp volume until you're as loud as you want to be, or as loud as your family and neighbors will tolerate. If you want to learn more about getting good bass tone, you can check out my beginner tone fixes video, and I'll have links for all the resources I mentioned in the description. All right, let's do this. Hold your horses, buddy.
Your position and posture is all messed up.
Playing in a bad position makes it hard to play, and it can cause pain. So here are 5 tips to get you properly set. 1, if you're sitting, you want to be high enough so your hips are level with or above your knees so you don't get lower back pain. And you want to seat without arms so your actual arms don't get boxed in. Tip 2, the most common place to rest your bass when sitting is over your right leg. Over the left leg works for some people, especially for higher notes, but it can make it harder to reach the lower notes since they're further away. You can try both and switch around. 3, you should always play with a strap on, whether sitting or standing, because it stabilizes the bass so your hands are free to focus on playing. Just attach it to both strap buttons and put your head and your right arm through, or your left arm if you're playing lefty. If you look at pro bassists, there's a range of how high or low people have their straps set. Under pressure. For easy learning, I recommend setting your strap so your bass stays in about the same position whether you're sitting or standing. Tip 4, neck angle. For most playing, it's nice to have it angled up a bit versus parallel with the floor, and it's okay to shift position around as you're playing. And again, there's a range with pro bassists. Some have it tilted up a lot, or a bit less, or even lower, which can be nice for slap bass. Tip 5, push the headstock away from you to get better access to the neck. That gives you room to move your arm comfortably, especially higher up, where you'd otherwise be getting stuck running into your torso. And with all that extra space, you'll have room to get your hand over to the computer so you can click like and subscribe to Bass Buzz for more beginner bass lessons. Ugh, why do I sound so bad?
Before you play, you gotta get in tune.
If you're not tuned up, everything you play will sound off, and you won't match up with any song or other instrument you try to play with. You tune by turning these tuners, which loosens or tightens the strings, which changes the sound. You can tune by ear, or you can use a tuner, which could be a clip-on, a plug-in, a pedal, or even an app. For beginners, I recommend using a tuner because it's easier to learn and it's more reliable at first. We're not gonna tune together in this video because it's really boring and it takes too long, but check the description for some in-depth how to tune resources. I'll just cover one starting point for tuning, which also helps with playing. You gotta know the names of your strings so you know how to tune them. So the names of your strings from thickest to thinnest are E, A, D, G. You can use any mnemonic you want to help you remember that. My favorite one is eat and drink grapes. But I'm weird. So those are the only notes you need to know for tuning, E, A, D, G. Do you need to know the names of these other notes? Hell yes you do, and I explain why and how in my fretboard money notes video, which is worth checking out after you're done here. But not before you get some critical technique basics down. All right, plucking, that sounds pretty easy. Okay, maybe not. Help!
Your hand by the body of the bass
Bass is in charge of plucking the strings, which is how you make the bass make sound. If you have bad technique, you'll hit the wrong strings, you won't be able to keep up, and your tone will suck. So here are 3 plucking tips to make sure you sound legit. First, you need to rest or anchor your thumb somewhere so your fingers can find the strings consistently. Your anchor point can change depending on what strings you're using. You might rest on a low string like the E or the A, or you might rest on a pickup, which is this magnety bit that turns the vibration of your strings into an electrical signal that your amp turns into juicy bass sounds. If you have 2 pickups like on this jazz bass, you should default to resting on the one closest to the neck, not the bridge, for most playing. Second, you pluck the strings with your index and middle fingers alternately, going index, middle, index, middle. That's not the only way to do it. You could pluck everything with 1 finger, which is simple, but it's hard to go very fast with. Or you could do it with 3, which gives you crazy speed, but is extra hard to learn. We use 2 fingers for standard bass plucking technique because it's not too hard to learn, but you can still get plenty fast since your index and middle fingers share the load.
Get away!
The third and final must-know plucking tip is to pull across. This is the difference between sounding like a noob and sounding like you know what you're doing. So let me show you this from the side. So what newbies always want to do is put their finger on the string and then pull up and away from the bass. And that does make a sound, but it's not the sound you want. It's kind of like thin and wimpy. To sound more legit and solid, you want to pull across into the next string or into your thumb if you're plucking on the E string. Not only does that sound more solid and bassy than this, but it also helps with unwanted ringing because every time you pluck the A string, your plucking fingers are then muting the E string. Making a habit of anchoring your thumb, plucking with index and middle, and pulling across takes a lot of practice, and that's why I make it a heavy focus in my Beginner to Badass course, where I cover all this stuff in way more detail and lots more in over 35 hours of lessons, and you can check that out at bassbuzz.com.
Is that guy plugging his course in the middle of the video? YouTubers.
So eventually you want to be comfortable plucking on all of your strings, but the easiest way to get started is just to practice on 1 string. So let's do a little plucking together on your E string along with some music. So anchor your thumb on the pickup. I'm going to count to 4 over and over, and we'll pluck index finger on 1 and middle finger on 3. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. Index 2, middle 4. Okay, let's try that. I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll start. And if this is too fast for you, just use the YouTube speed controls to slow it down. Here we go, let's get funky. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Index 2, middle 4. Index 2, middle 4. Make sure you're pulling across. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Should be running into your thumb. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that was a good start on your plucking, but I think we need to make this bass line a little funkier. And we can do that by muting the strings in between plucks, which will leave some space where the funk can get out. So right now you're plucking on 1, and then that note just keeps ringing until your next pluck on 3. So I'm gonna have you add a new move. On counts 2 and 4, you're gonna shut off your note, which you can do 2 ways. You can either touch the strings with all your fingers on your other hand, not pressing down the strings, just touching them so they don't vibrate, and then just release the strings before your next pluck. Or you can touch the E string with your plucking fingers, which will quiet it down and also set you up for your next pluck. Or you can do both. There's no fault in some extra muting. So however you do it, you're gonna go pluck, mute, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's hear that track one more time. You can try doing some muting with me or just listen to the difference in funkiness with that added space. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pluck, mute, pluck, mute. And you can do that with your other hand that's not plucking, or you can do it with your plucking fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nailed the plucking, time to play some sweet riffs. Crap, what's that buzzing?
Yo.
Let me guess, I'm doing something wrong?
Yeah, sorry dude, but it's a simple fix.
Your hand over here by the neck of the bass is in charge of fretting, which means pressing the strings against the fingerboard, which changes the sound they make. If you don't have decent fretting technique, you're gonna waste a lot of energy with like inefficient movements, and you can also hurt yourself playing in super contorted positions. So here are 3 fretting tips to help you ditch the buzz and get oriented. First, let's dial in your basic hand position. So start with your bass on your lap or off to the side, and just look at your palm in front of you. This should be a pretty relaxed position. Your shoulders should be dropped and relaxed. Your elbow should be resting next to your body. Your wrist should be either straight or slightly bent forward, and your fingers should be either straight or slightly bent forward, and your thumb is just relaxing off to the side of your hand, okay? Now without changing anything, don't change anything with that arm. Pick up your bass with your other arm and just put the neck next to your fingers. And that's basically what your hand should look like when you're playing bass. And from this position, you'll eventually be fretting with all 4 fingers. Teachers, including me, often say they should be pointed perpendicular to the neck, but that's really gonna shift a bit depending on how far your arm is from your body. Next, let's give some special attention to your thumb. There's a lot of bad advice going around out there that you should force your thumb to stay behind your middle finger when you're playing, but that adds a ton of tension to your hand, and it's just not necessary. So remember what your hand looks like when it's relaxed. Your thumb likes to be off to the side. So you want to aim to replicate that on the back of the neck. It can point along with your fingers or more towards the headstock, just wherever it wants to lay, and keep it as relaxed as possible. You're going to feel the urge to jam it into the neck, but that pressure is unnecessary and it makes your hand hurt. Final fretting tip: when you press down, you need to aim for the end of the fret closest to the pickups. So this whole area would be called the 3rd fret, but you need to press towards the end of it, right behind that metal wire, which is called the fret wire. And that gives you the best chance at getting nice clean notes that don't buzz. Let's test all that out together quickly with some music. So we're just gonna play 2 notes, the 5th fret and the 7th fret of the E string. So the E string is the fattest one, E and drink grapes, E, A, D, G, E. And the 5th fret is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. And then the 7th fret, 5, 6, 7. And notice those frets have dots, and those are just visual markers to help you track where you are on the bass without getting lost. So use your pinky finger to press down towards the end of the 7th fret, give that note a pluck, and then our second note, press with your index finger towards the end of the 5th fret, give that a pluck. So we're just gonna pluck that 7th fret note once for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then lift the pinky, play the 5th fret note with your index once, 1, 2, 3, 4, back and forth. And if your fingers are getting tired or the skin's getting roughed up, it's all good. You have a lot more stamina and skin toughness after the first few weeks. All right, let's do it. I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, then we'll start on that pinky note. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky, 2, 3, 4. Index, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're aiming for the end of the fret, not getting fret buzz. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good plucking and fretting technique is important, but you still won't sound like a bass player until you nail this final piece. Because the most important thing as a bass player is groove, locking in with the rest of the band so the music feels good. I'm going to show you 2 steps to make sure your playing is solidly grooving. Anytime you listen to music, there's a pulse that you can bob your head or tap your foot to. And feeling that pulse is step 1 to grooving with the band. Because if you try to play without feeling where that pulse is, you're just gonna play at weird times that don't have anything to do with what everyone else is doing. But even if you're feeling the pulse, if you don't have a plan of what specific rhythms you're meaning to play, you'll probably drift off. So the easiest way to make sure your playing is really synced up is to play some specific, simple rhythms, which I'll show you now. So if you want to play along with something like this, you remember step 1, you gotta find where that pulse is, where you wanna bob your head. 1, 2, 3, which is right here. And then step 2 is to know what rhythm you're aiming for. So each one of these pulses we call a beat. and we name our rhythms after how many beats they last. So you could play a note that lasts for 4 beats, which is called whole note. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or something that lasts 2 beats, which we call a half note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or just 1 beat, which is called a quarter note. If you need more help feeling the pulse of the music or listening to drums, you can check out my How to Play Bass with a Drummer video, which has some more beginner tips. Let's put everything you just learned into music with High and Dry by Radiohead. So we're gonna simplify this bass line a little bit, but it's still legit enough to play in a garage with your friends. So all the notes are on the E string, which remember is the fat one closest to your face, E and drink grapes, E, A, D, G. So fret the 2nd fret note with your index finger. Remember to press towards the end of the fret. Give that a pluck, and then fret the 5th fret note with your pinky finger to get some more pinky strengthening practice. And you don't need to stretch from the 2nd fret to the 5th fret like this. You can just slide your hand down in what I call a micro shift. So 2nd fret, 5th fret, and then for the open string, that just means to pluck without fretting the string. And those are all the 3 notes you need to play, and we'll mess around with the different rhythms you just learned to see how it affects the song. All right, let's play this thing. You're plugged in, your knobs are set, you got a comfortable position sitting or standing, you're tuned up, you're plucking with your index and middle, you're pulling across, your thumb is anchored on the pickup, your fretting hand is nice and relaxed, you're fretting with your index and pinky towards the end of the fret. Let's do it. I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll start with some nice spacious whole notes, which is just 1 pluck every 4 beats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2nd fret, 2, 3, 4. 5th fret, 2, 3, 4 to the open string. 2, 3. Now we'll fill up a little more space with some half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're plucking index middle if you can. 2, 3, 4. Now let's really push the song with some quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pluck on every beat.
Hey you! Turn that gall darn bass up! It sounds awesome!
Nice work. If that was your first real song ever,
Congratulations and welcome to the bass family. If you're a Radiohead fan like me, you should totally go play along with this whole song. You can do it all with just those 3 notes, and you can try out these different rhythm ideas to see how they affect the song. If you're not so into Radiohead, I have a couple beginner riffs videos you can check out to go keep playing music. Another really important beginner bass. All right, printed my tabs, gotta get to that jam session.
wait, there's so much more to learn. Attention deficit, YouTube viewers. At least watch my beginner lessons playlist on YouTube.